Hello, everyone. Welcome to Up Close and Personal. Today we have a guest joining us from B Town. His latest film, Bob Biswas, comes out on December 3. Give a very warm welcome to none other than Abhishek Bachchan. Hi, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing great.
Great.
So your so your movie is coming out shortly, and it was a small role from the film Kahani. And maybe a
Yes.
lot of the film, a lot of the people who saw the film back in 2012 don't even maybe recall a lot of the details of this character. What do you think was so remarkable about this character that warranted a film of his own?
Well, as you rightly said, Bob Biswas, or as they say in Kolkata, Bob Bishash, is a spin-off film, which is a style of film which isn't done very often in in Bollywood. There have been some in the past, but it was interesting to get a character that has already come, albeit just for an 8-minute role in Shujoy's Kahani. And as you know, Bob Bishash is directed by Sujoy's daughter, Dia. So evidently, the character had left some sort of an impact on the audience because, the character of Bob became very, very popular, albeit just for an 8-minute role. And I'm just so happy that Dia and Sujoy both thought of me to be able to take the story of Bob ahead.
Mhm. Okay, so he's this contract killer who has this sudden awakening of conscience. Do you
Yes.
think putting such villains in front and center it humanizes them more than we should?
That's a very, very interesting question and a very apt question, actually. It's something that I've been wrestling with um, for a good 15 to 17 years now, where I noticed a certain trend in cinema in general, where we're trying to humanize everybody from our heroes, or should I say, from our superheroes, even to our villains. And I think that kind of indicates a certain shift in society where the traditional moral standards of society have changed. The good isn't just always all good, and the bad isn't just always all bad. There are two sides to a coin. Most people live and thrive in the middle of the spectrum, which is gray. That humanizes them. After that, do you still need to justify their good or their bad, or does the audience decide? So I think by and large, this has been happening. I mean, for example, if I can give you examples, I mean, if you see somebody like, say, James Bond, I think when James Bond came in with Daniel Craig and they made a movie called Casino Royale, I think that was the first time you kind of, in a sense, understood James Bond's backstory. So in that sense, they kind of humanized him to you. Till then, he wasn't just the character James Bond. There was emotional reason why he is or has been in a particular way. Even our superheroes, from Iron Man to Superman to Batman, if you see, they've all been humanized to an extent that we see that they are flawed to a certain extent. And maybe as in the past, where our heroes were heroic because of their superior moral ground, today it's about seeing heroes which have what would be the best way to say it?
Flaws.
Not only are they gray in character, but they have flaws, and with those flaws, they still overcome the evil, and that makes them heroes. And I think that's what appeals to today's generation. They understand that perfection might not be a concept which is universally accepted, but to have your shortcomings and still to rise and achieve, I think that is heroic today. So we come to the question that should we be humanizing and to a certain extent justifying a villain? I think that's a separate debate because that can go on for a long time. Just to keep it in the world of Bob, Bob is not a villain.
Okay.
I think that was one of the functions that Sujoy was very particular about. Bob is a good hearted, good natured, dutiful husband and a father and a family man. And a certain dilemma, albeit a moral one, a moral dilemma that comes into his life and how he has to deal with it. we were very clear that, you know, what's interesting when you first met Bob in Kahani, because it's such a brief role, you don't really understand where he's coming from, why he does what he does. Is there a reason behind it? Is he just a bad guy? But whenever you write a character, I believe that you always have a backstory, however brief the character. And I think that's where the germ of the story of Bob Biswas came up from. When Sujoy actually had a basic inkling of this character that he wrote of a cold-blooded, really sweet assassin, what was his backstory? So I think Bob Biswas is an attempt to maybe elaborate on, okay, we've taken a small character, but this is the story of it. That is when you actually get to justify, define, and then eventually judge that is he a good guy or a bad guy. As far as performing it and directing it and writing this Bob Biswas, we never approached it as he was a bad guy. He's a good guy in a bad situation.
Okay. So as an actor, you know, when you get a new character, you probably have to find aspects of it that you relate to. So what aspects of this character did you relate to personally?
No, I don't think it's necessary that you need to relate to your characters. I think another way to maybe answer that is there's a lot of yourself that you invest in a character.
Mm-hmm.
First, primarily because of the physicality. It is you performing that.
Mm-hmm.
But there's always a little bit of your personal self that you invest into a character. But that doesn't mean you need to relate to them. And in fact, I feel, especially now in the last, I would say 5 to 6 years, I enjoy characters that would be that much more difficult to portray because there's nothing in common. You know, I mean, now that if I look back at my career, I think many years ago, in I think 2003 or 4, I did a movie with Mani Ratnam called Yuva. That was the first character I remember vividly thinking at that point in time, is that I need to create this guy from scratch because I don't know this person. And nor do I know anybody like this person. I have no reference point. At that point, it was a very daunting task. But of late, I think it's interesting that you get parts where you have to create, there's no reference point. And that journey of bringing that character to life is that much more challenging, but rewarding.
You mentioned physicality of this character. You had to gain a lot of weight for this, right? And now you're in great shape. So does this whole thing about gaining weight and losing weight, does it take a toll on you mentally and physically? Because I think you have to do this quite often, right?
You know, I don't know about mentally, but physically, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Thankfully, I mean, I've done it once before in my career, and at that point of time, it was just put on, and then you try to lose it. Now, thankfully, you know, we're better informed, where we have, you know, a nutritionist who can tell you how to put it on properly, how to lose it properly. But I think it boils down to the basic key factor of putting on or losing weight. There are many diets, there are many trainers, there are many programs that you can do, but at the end of the day, it's input versus output. You want to put on weight, you just got to eat more than you burn. And vice versa when you want to lose it. You want to lose it, you have to burn more calories than you eat. That's what it comes down to. It's a matter of doing it healthily and eating clean. So yeah, it is very challenging. It is.
Mm-hmm. So Kahani was a thriller crime sort of a genre, and does this film differ in tone
no,
from that?
I would say this is all, you could classify this as a crime thriller.
Okay. So the director was Dia Anupam, of course. It's her second feature film, the second time directing a feature film. Do you think,
No, she's directed a short film. This is her first feature film. Yeah.
Okay, this is her first feature film. So do you feel there's a fundamental difference from the new directors of this subcontinent to the older ones, the more experienced ones?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So what
but with all due respect, I mean, that happens every generation. Every generation brings their own experiences and their own voice. So are the current generation of young directors different to directors that came in 10 years ago? Absolutely. But that's the way it is world over. That's how you keep progressing. That's how you evolve. So they're different. The one thing that I've noticed, especially in our industry, is the level of maturity of craft. I think a lot about filmmaking has a lot to do with experience and just time spent making films. This generation, like Dia, I mean, I hope the audiences will agree with me after they see the film. You're not going to believe that a 26-year-old girl made this film as her first film. There's an amazing maturity of craft. I think they're very, very well equipped and prepared on a world platform, not just on an Indian subcontinent platform, to be able to make the kind of subject. So I do see a greater level of maturity in craft.
So you're an OTT veteran by now. You've had several films come out on streaming services. Is it a more zen experience for you to have your films be released on the streaming platforms because you don't have to worry about how it's going to do in the box office?
Ever since I did my first outing on OTT over 2 years ago, I've been asked this question. It's not just about the box office. The box office is a barometer to judge the success or failure of a film. Your film is still going to be judged whether it's a good film or a bad film.
By the critics and the audience.
By the audience. The critic is an audience as well. I don't differentiate between them. You always have, see, for me, being an industry kid, being born and brought up, this is my family business. I have a firm belief that a good film is a successful film. And there are no two ways about it. Why? Because we make films for the audience. We don't make it for personal consumption. So I've always believed this, and I know some people might have contrarian views to this because it's an art form, but it is a commercial art. So a film that does well is a good film. A film that doesn't do well wasn't good enough. So at the end of the day, it still comes down to, is your film going to be loved or not? So the stress is the same.
Okay, great. So your father, Abhishek Bachchan, he did a Tagore song in the last film, in Kahani, and you are, starring in the titular role here. And does he or you have a personal connection to this story?
To this?
To this story.
No.
Okay.
I think he did Akla Cholore because Sujoy asked him to.
Okay.
Sujoy is very close to my father. They've done a lot of work together. And he requested him, although I requested Vishal Shekhar and Sujoy to give me the track in this film as well, because it's one of my top 3 favorite songs. My dad's version of Ekla Cholore. It's very inspirational, and I love the way he used it in Kahani, and I wanted to use it in Bob's. But it didn't quite work out.
Okay. So since I'm from Bangladesh, I'm gonna have to ask you about your Bengali heritage. You do have it from your mother's side, and
yes.
What are you most proud of about your Bengali heritage?
Sadia, it sounds a bit weird, but I've not been brought up like that.
Okay.
There was never any stress कि आपके पिताजी जो है वो आधे यूपी के हैं, आधे सरदार है, and your mother is Bengali. We've been brought up. I've always been brought up by my parents to be an Indian first. Okay. Very less emphasis was laid on anything beyond that. For example, my grandfather, who was a very eminent poet, was very against the caste system. Hence the name. Bachchan was his nom de plume. And it also doesn't denominate his caste, because he didn't believe in caste. Mm-hmm. So there was an instance in his life where somebody asked him his caste and he refused to tell them. And they said, okay, anyway, you write your name, we'll know your caste. He wrote Bachchan. And he said, now tell me what is my caste. So, we've not been brought up like that. But yes, from my maternal side, I am Bengali. They're Probashi Bengalis, which means my mother's not from West Bengal. She's actually born in Madhya Pradesh, in a place called Jabalpur, but did most of her childhood schooling in a city called Bhopal, which is the capital of Madhya Pradesh. which is a central province in India. And obviously my Nanaji, my Nani are all Bengalis. My entire family is Bengali. So there's a great affinity to all things Bengali. And it's the people of Bengal have always given my family so much love. And even when we shoot over there, I mean, they very sweetly, whenever I've shot in Kolkata, my father is known as Jamai Babu in Kolkata. And they actually call me Amar Nati. So I accept that with open arms, you know. Everything about the Bengalis is about being, it's all about love and culture. And obviously we love to sit down and debate. I think Bengalis love to debate. So it's something about part of me which I'm very proud of. But like I said, that kind of was never given emphasis to us as children.
So we're running out of time here. Any last words for your Bangladeshi fans?
Most definitely. It's something that I always say. I mean, I find it very difficult to hard sell my films, but you know, obviously, Bob Biswas is going to be available on Z5 from the 3rd of December. Do see it as and when, if you feel like it. But more importantly, I just want to say thank you so much. You know, we don't get a chance to thank the audiences for their love, affection, and patronage. If it wasn't for the fans, we wouldn't be here. And I don't think we ever get enough of a platform or an opportunity to thank them. So I'd like to blatantly use your platform to just convey my absolute respect and gratitude to the audiences for allowing me and continuing to allow me to do what I do, and to give me an opportunity to try and entertain you all. So thank you. I'm eternally grateful.
And thank you, Abhishek Bachchan, for being with us. We hope to see your film on December 3rd, and we hope to have you.
I hope you enjoy it. I hope you enjoy it. Take care. All the best.